This is the 19th season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, AFTCO, Pro Guide Batteries, X Zone Lures, Shoreline Boat and RV Repair, Spro, Gamakatsu, Big Bite Baits, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk about bass fishing. Got a good show today. And I've been in Oklahoma 15 years now. I grew up in central Illinois. Always been a big fan of the Ozark region. You know, Grand, Table Rock, Bull Shoals, Lake of the Ozarks, all sorts of cool lakes in there. Non-grass, rock lakes, dock, pattern fishing, all sorts of cool stuff. We got one of the guys, man, he's been doing it for a long time in the Ozark area and then really went, I guess, big time national, so to speak, 6-7 years ago, well-known in the area, Jeremy Lawyer. And like I said yesterday, he's one of those guys that when you get in a room of guys who know how to tell stories, the guys who are storytellers listen to him tell stories. Surefire sign that you are that you're a good storyteller and have some good stuff. I think we'll get into it. I think he does some squirrel hunting tournaments, but they weigh in their best 5 squirrels, and you can call, I don't know. We'll ask him about that. We'll also get into a bunch of Ozark stuff. I also, before we get going, I'm just going to address it. I know yesterday we had Gene Gilliland, and really good show with Gene Gilliland, Bass Conservation Director. And I know Gene even talked about, man, it's hard to get people excited about conservation unless it's something that immediately impacts them. But we had Gene on, and he got into all sorts of stuff about cycles of fisheries, what stocking actually means, how if you stock 100,000 or 60,000 of these pure Florida strains, how by the time you get down to the ones that are actually mature and giants, there's like 5 or 6 of them from the original stocking. He talked about the dilution of the genetic gene pool, whether it's with Alabama bass and smallmouth, which is some major problems that's going on in Tennessee and Alabama and North Georgia, or whether it's Florida's breeding with the northern strains to create F1s, and then just really cool stuff that I really encourage you to go back and watch and listen to that show yesterday. But it did freeze a couple times. I was in contact with my internet provider. Like I said, we had major tornado that went through Shawnee, Oklahoma last Wednesday. There were only like 2 minor injuries, though, no deaths. But my internet provider, which I'm plugged right in, it like recycles every 20 minutes. So Jeremy's aware of it. We'll go. He'll keep going. I might disappear, but we'll be back. So, all right, let's bring Jeremy Lawyer in for the day. Jeremy, thanks for jumping on BTL. Just be fully aware you might have to carry the show for 10 or 15 seconds while my service like reboots, but I think it's something you can handle. So thanks for jumping on. Are you like just waiting to go fishing until we're done with this?
You know, I was going to, but I looked at the same cell of storms coming in from Oklahoma City towards Grand Lake that you have, and it's got me a little bit leery. So I think I'm going to just do some tackle today, work on stuff for this next week at the Invitational up at Lake of the Ozarks, and get that out of the way. And then when the storms pass, maybe Friday, slip onto the water then. All
right. So this is the other thing we're dealing with this morning. There's a screenshot right there. That blue dot right there is me. And here's what's coming in. So hang on, folks. We might be in. Supposedly there's no real heavy, severe stuff in that tornado like, but you've been following heavy hitters at all this week? I know you're on your you're on the BPT this year. What, second year on the BPT or third now?
Yeah. Now this is my second season, and absolutely I've been following it. All it's going to take is one cast and somebody's going to win $100,000. I think Dakota Ebers leading that right now, but at the lakes that they're on, it could change at any moment.
How crazy is what Dakota Ebers done over the last year and a half? You've been in this game for a long time. You know what it's like to get on some streaks, to get on a hot streak. But dude, what that dude has done over the past 13, 14 months, is that impressive to the anglers he's competing against too? Like you guys talk about, oh, here goes Ebers again.
Absolutely. We saw it with Michael Neal the last couple of years too. And then he's kind of starting to slide off a little bit. Not that Michael's not fishing great still, but some of that things that you saw, just like Ebers catching that 9-pounder yesterday, Michael's not getting that bite now, and eventually Ebers won't either. But yeah, when you see a young guy come up and he's kind of really getting his career going and stuff like that's happening, it's really exciting. I remember when some of that happened to me, but he has done amazingly the last, like you said, 13, 14 months. And I'm glad I do not have to pay his taxes because it's not going to be pretty.
I think he ended up getting like a little Hutton farm down there and got a bill. It's really cool to see that. I've had him on the show before. I know he was like a college rodeo guy, but paid his dues, and it'll be interesting to see. The only guy who's ever been able to make that last is KVD, and I think that's why so many of the guys have respect. And then the busier you get, the more interview requests. And KVD had a 20-year run where it was just became expected. The rest of them, like you mentioned, Michael Neal or like a Denny Brower or any of those guys, there's even a Larry Nixon, a Clun. There's streaks like that, but then there'll be a couple down years or a couple average years where you're like, oh, this guy's actually human. Kevin's the only one who for 2 decades was like, is he human?
That's a fact. I mean, it's just amazing what's Kevin's done. And, Ebers, he's a genuinely good guy too. So anytime, you blend those two kind of fishermen together and everybody's kind of rooting for him and you're glad to see him have some success, and everything. And so hopefully he can just keep his grip as long as he can. And maybe he'll be the next Kevin Van Dam. I mean, you don't know at this point.
Yeah, he could be. He's got a firm handshake, Dakota. I can see why, when you're not using nets, that fish gets near the boat. It's boom. I mean, that dude has a very firm handshake. I shook his hand at the Classic and was like, oh, dang. But I mean, you're talking Texas rodeo bass fisherman. You can't really limp wrist it.
No, not at all.
You got to be excited. You've got a derby on your home pond coming up.
That is exciting. The best part about it is I don't have to drive 27 hours to it. It's close to home. You know what to expect. And then, I've had some success up there in the past. It's definitely a different time of year. There's not going to be a lot of hometown advantage just because the fish are going to be shallow. The spawn's going to be on, there's probably going to be all stages still. We've really had kind of a trickle in spring. It really hasn't been one of those where we just got hot and warm and they just flooded the banks. And so it'll really be one of those where a guy's going to have to get a little bit fortunate and have enough of a game plan to keep fish for 3 days. But then again, when you're at home, you can even run new water and feel confident that you're around them just because what you've run in the past. So I don't know. We'll see. But just the not traveling, not far from home and all that is really nice.
I would imagine Lake of the Ozarks, for my time spent there, it's got to be a cool place because you can fish entire tournaments and never fish water that you haven't fished in 20 years. Like there's no way that you can cover that entire. I mean, have you covered that entire lake, or how many times have you been like, you know what? I've never been into this pocket, this cut, this row of docks in my entire life. Are there still places that exist like that on the lake for you? Dude, I mean, for me, you come there, it's massive. It's expansive. You could spend a whole day just flipping docks in one little cove.
Yeah, I don't know that I can really say I can experience that now. I fished there, 25 years now. And,
okay.
Over that amount of time, I've kind of seen about everything. Now, is there some places I'll probably never go back to? You're probably right there. But, but no, the most intimidating thing and the best thing about Lake of the Ozarks is that you can literally throw a dart at the map on a wall. And wherever it hits, you have the possibility of winning there because the lake is that strong. It has that many upper end fish. And it's just a really healthy population of numbers. And so, I mean, it's kind of intimidating, but it's kind of good because like you said, you can just run new water and stand a chance to win the tournament.
We're going to take a deep dive into some Ozark stuff. Cause like I said, I love the Ozarks. There's a rich history there. A lot of historic and legendary anglers have come out of that region. I do also want to mention, we were doing a push on BTL along with Adam Bartuzek from the Crappie Chronicles for the St. Jude Dick Hiley Bass Classic. And for the past month, you could donate on the website directly to it. And then we had every $20 you donated, you got a chance to win either a Blackfish suit or a AFCO suit. He's going to be on at the end of the show, second part of the show, and he's going to draw the winner for each one of those suits. And then also, I wanted to talk to him a little bit about, he just got second in the Toyota Series on Kentucky Lake. Did you hear how that went down, Jeremy?
No, I didn't.
The top two guys were using 360 or live scope to scope giant flats on Kentucky Lake, and they would locate smallmouth beds on their electronics and then could see the smallmouth in the bed. So they'd pan across the flat and then go over and pitch to them. Smoked everyone in the field. He called me during practice and he's like, dude, I can literally just waypoint him on the 360. Then I can go over to him. You can't see him visually, right? Pitch to it. And every single time it would go donk and swim off. Said he caught like 40 or 50 a day. He went like 17, 19, 19, all smallmouth. Kentucky Lake finished second in the Toyota. I mean, I was
That's
like,
unbelievable.
Yeah. Is that not a cool pattern?
That is.
And then the guy you beat the same thing. All smallmouth.
I don't know. If you look at how Ben Milligan won the Open and now that guy's won, there's so many different trends in fishing right now. That's not the old style of fishing. It's really evolving. It's crazy.
What do you think about Milliken? That was something else too, wasn't it?
I have never attempted to fish like that really with the way he was, but it dang sure opens your eyes that we're definitely missing some fish out there and different things. And so I think you'll probably see a lot of that really moving forward, where guys are trying to learn that. And especially the younger generation that really depends on that live scope more percentage of the time than some of the veteran anglers. And so I think you'll probably see that really expand and maybe get either really, really get a lot better or just nosedive and get worse from the pressure. Well, I'll tell you what, I believe we froze up and Matt will be back here in a few seconds. But, whenever you start thinking about what Ben did, it's going to take a while for some of those fish to get pressure just because the fact that there's so much open water out there and he spends so much time looking. But whenever he finally does get dialed in on one, or maybe when people in some of these smaller lakes really get to pestering some of the same fish again, you'll probably see that take the pressure just like anything else. I
talked to Gene Gilliland about it. And we talked a little bit about this off air. We didn't talk about it on air because we did like an hour and a half show, but he was talking about the impact of the forward facing technology. He said as biologists, they used to, shock up all these giant fish in the spring. And then they would go, where did these things go? Because they would run them, the shocking boats and they wouldn't catch them. And he's like, now we're seeing that they're out kind of suspended out in open water. His belief.
Well, there's no doubt that they're suspended in open water. You can see that more in the wintertime. You can see that more in the summertime. There's fish spending a lot of time in places that we didn't even know existed, back in the day before forward-facing sonar. And it may have some sort of effect on the fish when they start coming back to the banks or being able to get pressure out there. But there's no doubt that when you start seeing them and seeing the anglers adapt out there, the ways to catch them are just going to evolve, and it's going to either get, really good, or it's going to take its toll, and pressure will get the best of those, just like it has kind of some of the bank bass over the years.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Like I said, we're working through this, Jeremy. So
I had you covered. I just fell in sync.
You did. You're awesome. No, I didn't know if you heard what I said, but Gene thinks those offshore fish will then sense that pressure and reposition to where they won't get caught or distributed, that they'll say, okay, now we're feeling the pressure here. So now they're going to go to a different area where none of us are looking right now.
Yeah, 100%. And when we can see it with the naked eye on a Garmin live scope to where they get skittish when you point the beam at them, they're feeling it. They know what's going on. So that's just a matter of time.
I would love to know what that sounds or feels like to them, because I have noticed that too a little bit. And some of the guys in the open are starting to talk about 80 to 120 feet cast, especially with the new 34 transducer that you can see way out there. And they firmly believe that when you stick that beam on them now, some of those fish are feeling that pressure, that they're moving away from it or getting harder to catch. So they'll hit them with it and then either move and then make the cast or stay way back. I'd be interested just to see acoustically or whatever, what that forward facing beam feels like. Cause I mean, you can't really hear it.
No, the crappie are doing it too. You can get a whole you can get a school of 30, 40 sitting out in front of you. And you throw a jig at them, they're 6-8 foot deep. They hear the bloop and kind of part right there where you throwed your jig, and then they get to moving. When you first see them, they'll be sitting there, and then they get to moving, and the harder you chase them, the harder they get to go. And I mean, they really can feel that out there 50, 60 foot. So it's pretty crazy, but all the fish are feeling it.
Would you consider yourself a bank guy, an offshore guy, a middle ground guy? Like, what would your style be? Because I mean, I know you've won and top 10 a number of different ways.
Man, I tell you what, I was so dependent on, I had to get my money back in the day. I need my entry fee back. I did whatever it took to catch them, and it, at the time, it maybe kind of keeps you from winning every now and again because you're not fixing your strengths. But it made me so consistent that a lot of that just kind of fell in suit as I went, a little more out and stretched my legs regionally. And then I became, fishing professionally. And, I really don't mind, I don't mind to flip boat docks, or do something in the grass, throw a chatterbait in Florida. And then last year at Cayuga, I caught 100 pounds one day on a dadgum drop shot up there. It was 8-pound test. So, I mean, I really don't mind. I just want to get some bites doing something. And then I'm pretty comfortable with whatever I need to do, but I really have kind of stayed away from some of the glide baits, the big swim baits, the different things that make you look like a hero or a zero very, very easily, just because the fact that I'm trying to stay more consistent and always have. So I think it's probably just whatever a person feels comfortable with.
You mentioned that. Let's dive into that. I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Clearly over the past, I'd say 5 years, and it's been around a little bit longer, but the Ozark region, you're seeing guys pull out those big baits. I mean, I would assume when you started that wasn't even on the table, the 7 to 9 inch glide baits, but you're seeing that now. And it seems like the more the guys throw it, the more that you're finding, hey, the fish on these lakes, whether it's spotted bass, smallmouth, largemouth. I think we saw Oliver Nye win a big bass deal on Lake of the Ozarks a couple years ago on a big glide bait for $100,000. What are your thoughts on that? When was the first time you saw that coming in, and how hard has it been for you to stick to your guns and what you know works and not go out, drop a couple grand and start slinging big wood?
Well, I tell you what, I learned a lesson really, really quick. A good friend of mine, Robbie Dotson, a great Ozark fisherman here, unbelievable what he's done in his career. Fished an FLW event at Beaver Lake back in 15 or 16. He was throwing a big swim bait and a big glide bait like that. He said, Jeremy, I can catch 30 pounds a day. I mean, it's unbelievable. I'm going to blow this tournament out. And the first day of the event, he had a 2-pounder. The second day, he said, I got to go do it again or I can't catch up. The second day, he caught a 2-pounder. So when that tournament was over with, I visited with him about it. He said they'd still come up there and try and tail it or rub on it, or, they just, for whatever reason, decided not to eat it for the 2 days of the tournament when he'd caught him for 3 days leading up to that, in 3 different areas. It wasn't like he was burning his fish. But he told me, he said, I'm going to tell you something I want you to ever forget. I could have took a wiggle wart or a storm rock crawler and put 2 rods on the deck and won $10,000 without breaking a sweat. He said, I could have probably made the cut, whatever it might have been, got a good bite. But he said, I chose to try and do that to win. And he said, it kept me from making the Forest Wood Cup that year because I finished dead last in that tournament. So I have always remembered that. And it kept me from kind of doing it. Now, don't get me wrong. If you watch the Red Crest this year, I slung a mag draft around at the end of the day, and I caught a 4-pounder to make it into the top 10 of the Red Crest, or the top 20 cut of the Red Crest. And so I do throw a mag draft around a little bit. I do throw like a Zoom Z Swam and a Zoom hollow belly, I mean, some of that stuff that's normal size, but when it comes time to break out a big glide bait or them 10-inch baits and all that, I mean, I don't even take one in my boat because I don't want to get sidetracked with it. I do have a handful, not very many. I throw them a little bit around home. I do play with them some. I do have a little bit of luck throwing them and having fish show themselves and then turn around and throwing a wacky rig on them or something like that and catching them in local events here around the house. But it's about got to be a team event, so your team partner can throw on them after they've gave you the high sign, and swim back. So that's about my extent with them. But I just really know what it can do to you as far as burning you and burning time. And so I just feel like I've done well enough over the years. If I can just keep
Mm-hmm.
kind of evolving with a lot of baits, I don't want to get behind the times, but on the other hand, I don't want to change my style so much or get so much confidence in that next thing you know, I'm just forcing it to work, and it just seems like to me, it's just not really something that I'm that interested in.
The big thing now is the hover strolling. We're seeing some of the Japanese anglers, but also I had Matt Steffen on. He's big into it. I had Johnny Schultz. That seems to be the next trend in quotation marks. It should work on the Ozarks phenomenally well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, any of that finesse style stuff, you know, the Japanese anglers really, really have opened my eyes to the finesse kind of ways of throwing things that are definitely outside the box. So any of that stuff like the hover strolling or the power shot, you know, Gamakatsu's got a really nice power shot setup you can just buy. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of that's different from our traditional Texas rig or traditional grub throwing, but it works tremendously well. And there's not a lot of difference in it, but there's enough to the fish to where their brain doesn't register that as, hey, that's danger, or I've seen that so many times. And so those things I do have a lot of. I do try to practice a lot of that stuff and try to mix it in my arsenal. But it just seems like that glide era, I'm just going to let the younger guys mess with it, and if they kick my teeth in a time or two, I'll get even with them, and on average before the year's over with.
But 250-mile radius from like March through the end of the year, you're going jig or finesse jig?
Well, I mean, a finesse jig's a staple all the time, you know, in the Ozarks. And a jig is something I have tied on 365 days a year on the road too. You can take it to Florida, you can take it to the Carolinas, you can go to Texas, you can fish here in the Ozarks. I mean, a jig is just something that you gotta have. There's no two ways about that, because we all cut our teeth here in the Ozarks throwing a jig. You know, it was just something that mimicked the crawfish. It was really simple. It's been around forever. And it catches numbers and it catches quality all at the same time.
All right, we're back. I was talking about so hopefully you ran through like the Ozark staples. I said jig or finesse.
I just talked about a jig.
Okay, yeah, jig, but that 200-mile radius, you're going spinner bait. If you're going to have just a handful of baits that you're going to have on the front deck, I mean, you won a 2019 FLW Tour event putting a spinner bait where spinner baits have never gone before. You're going some sort of top water, whether it's a buzz bait or a plopper, and you're going some sort of trick worm, finesse worm, whether you're dragging that, whether you're pitching it, whether you're fishing it finesse or power fishing.
Yeah,
is that a fair Ozark arsenal across the board without giving away any secrets?
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to it is probably like a shaky head and a fluke style bait. Whether you've got a fluke style bait on a jig head for like a Damiki rig, or whether you're throwing it weightless, it just seems like a fluke style bait really works good. And really used to come April 1st, I put jerk baits up. I never really threw another one again, you know, but with the introduction of live scope and forward facing sonar, it seems like a jerk bait is staying in my boat a lot longer than it's ever stayed before, just because it's works so good on suspending fish, and, you know, you're seeing more applications to throw it. But for the most part, you're right. It doesn't take a lot of tackle here in the Ozarks.
That being said, everything we talked about encompass it. And I've noticed over the last 3 or 4 years, the wiggle wart is, I don't want to say forgotten, but I mean, it used to be, oh, it's wiggle wart time. Now it seems that's the 3rd or 4th option that guys are reaching for. Like, we've even seen McClellan struggle in some tournaments where the forward facing sonar, like you said, with the jerk bait, with the swim bait, and you know he's out there cranking a rock crawler around.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that kind of early spring and late, the cranking bite is not as predominant on the Ozarks as it? I mean, dude, I feel like for 15 years, like that's what you did in February, March, early April, is you went out and you grinded a wart or a rock crawler around, and that was like option 1A, 2, and 3.
Well, here's my thought on it as far as like doing it, and it's affected me. I used to love to do it. I had 3 cranking rods up there, 3 different lines, 3 different baits, love throwing a wart, love throwing a rock crawler, and that was how we caught them. But now with forward-facing sonar, you can run out to the middle of the pockets, find a group of shad, find a group of bass and catch the same amount of weight in a tenth of the time that it took all day to catch a good bag of fish up there cranking on the bank. And I think especially a lot of the younger generations have really taken a hold of that because it's easier. I mean, that's the bottom line. If you have to go out there and grind it out in intuition where the transitions on the bank are they on channel swings, are they on this, or you can go out there and put your trolling motor down and look for a bass. I think the younger generation is definitely utilizing that, and it's keeping them off the bank. It's not as predominant because a lot of the bigger fish are out there with those shad. You got a good chance to win. And the bottom line is it's easier. So it's taken away some of that cranking up on the bank. But, I really enjoy throwing a rock crawler and throwing a lot of the old warts. And it's still part of my arsenal because I just really enjoy doing it. And to be honest with you, it's made it a little bit easier on me and some of the veteran guys that have done it for years because we don't have any competition if they're doing it now. All the young guys or other generation of anglers are out there live scoping and fighting over one another for schools of fish. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword, but it's definitely something just like you talked about.
All right, you talked about the old school anglers. You talked about the new school anglers. We're going to take our first break of the show, and when we come back, we're going to put a couple lists together. Everybody likes lists. I'm going to give you a little heads up on it, though, Jeremy. I'm gonna ask for your top all-time Ozark tournament anglers, and then I want to see who you think the up-and-coming Ozark guys are. Fair?
Yeah.
All right. BTL, I'm going to call you the co-host for the day, too, because you have to carry the show every 10 minutes for 20 seconds. I'm back with Jeremy Lawyer, MLFBPT professional, coming off a great year last year, 14th in the Angler of the Year last year, 24th this year. And then when you combine it with your 5 years on the FLW Tour, 8th, 21st, 11th, 50th, and 28th, the man knows how to put together solid limits of fish. It's BTL on a Wednesday. We'll be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Top on all, Strike King.
So I'm a big guy, a lunker, a two sandwich eating kind of man. And on behalf of all of those bigger, I gotta say it once and for all, it's bad enough that the fish look smaller in our hands. The last thing we should have to worry about is getting quality outdoor clothing that fits. Avco, any fish, any water.
Shoreline Boat and RV, dock rash, storm damage, collision repair, that deep scratch or gouge from trying to access that secret creek. Shoreline Boat and RV can get your prized possession back in mint condition and looking good on the water, fast. All repairs are done in-house, so they're able to get your boat or RV back to brand new, quickly. All Shoreline's work comes with a rock-solid warranty. Find out more at ShorelineBoatandRV.com. Kansas City, Austin, and Tulsa. All right, welcome back. BTL on a Wednesday, talking with Jeremy Lawyer, and we're going to go into the risky portion of the show, which is lists of anglers. Because you're going to leave someone out. So I just qualify that with saying, hey, this is just for fun, but I'm also interested because you, A, learn about new anglers, and B, learn to respect old anglers that maybe were underrated or were before your generation. You don't understand the importance that they brought to it. Like we had Kelly Jordan on, he told the story about bringing that mag spoon, kind of exposing that Magnum spoon to everybody, and that whole story was really cool. It was like one of his buddies who was an older dude who had a bait deal, and he was went up to Canada and he had these things he was trolling, and he's like, this kind of looks like a gizzard shad. I wonder if they'd eat it. And then they went out and like they ate it. And then he was able to keep that mag spoon quiet for like 2 or 3 years. There's none of that anymore.
That's what when we were talking earlier about Kevin Van Dam and the streak he was on and stuff like that. I think Kevin had a lot of things that he kept in his back pocket and was able to, just because social media was not there to expose it all, to where some of these younger anglers or some of these guys like Michael Neal and Dakota that get on a run, if they do have maybe a quiet bait, they want to keep quiet, it's exposed by the camera instantly, and stuff. And so, and online sales are so easy. So, I mean, some of that's kind of probably done it that way where Kelly could keep that quiet.
Yeah. All right. Let's start with historic guys. We mentioned a couple of them. It was interesting. I was looking back, doing some research back in 2018 when you won the Costa Series at the time on Lake of the Ozarks. And I think it was was that your first like big win on Lake of the Ozarks? I think you'd had a bunch of top finishes, but at that level, was that your first win? But there's correct?
Yeah, that was my first win on that particular lake.
But it's interesting. There's a quote in this story, buried in this story. You said, I still can't believe it happened for me today. I grew up watching Stacy King fishing on television. Ugh, I can't talk. And he's been the man here for many years. Dennis Bearhorst wins everything. I told my wife when I started that if I could compete with Dennis, Roger Fitzpatrick, and Marcus Sikora, that I could survive anywhere. And that was back in 2005. I have so much respect for all those guys. And then you said it feels great to win. But there's a list of guys there. Let's start with the history, the Ozark history, guys. Let's just do, I mean, you could go back as far as you want, but let's do that kind of Stacy King generation era there. Your top guys, if you were to do kind of put an Ozark Mount Rushmore up there.
Well, I tell you what, Stacy King's really high on my list. I've got to know Stacy for several years now, and he's a great fisherman, great guy, and he was a little more well-rounded than some of the anglers. He'd lived on Table Rock, so he could catch them in clean water, and then he could compete in the grass. And he was really consistently good on all the lakes as they traveled the country. And then somebody like Denny Breyer and Guido Hibden, I don't want to choose between any of these guys, but
we can put them both up there.
Yeah, but it seems like to me, Guido was really good around the spawn, finesse, and he was kind of one of those first finesse guys that could take a gets it and different things and catch them. And then Denny was more of a power fisherman. I'm going to flip, and that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to do anything else. And so it kind of singled them out different from Stacy King. And of course, Dion, he won the Cup and the Classic. You can't keep Dion out of the mix, just such a well-rounded angler and still a great angler today. We fish against him at Lake of the Ozarks. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he's not in the Invitational next week up there, and kind of the wild card, in my opinion, would be like Larry Nixon. Now, he's from Arkansas, but that's still the Midwest, Larry was a great angler, and still a great angler, fishes the Bass Elites, but he was a real well-rounded angler to where it seemed like to me he caught him just all over the country, first man to win $1 million at BASS. And so it's just really crazy. And really, kind of the wild card, if you want to go back and kind of put a time frame on it without starting a war or anything here. But, if you say the Ozarks and some of the anglers here, you got to think of Chad Breyer. Now, he doesn't fish anymore, but Chad was a really good angler, when he had the dedication and had the time and the desire to fish professionally. And as he gave it up, it just kind of went away. And then I think you still got to throw Randy Blockett in there. You look at the first 20 years of his career, I think the man's fished for like 35 or maybe 40 years. That first 20 years was pretty dadgum solid, Now, I don't know about the last 20, but I mean,
well, if you're putting Blockett up on the Mount Rushmore, everyone else, we can use power tools to chisel the faces out. Randy's up there with a hammer and a chisel. He's doing it old school. He's chiseling out his face.
That's right. That's right.
So, one hammer at a time. None of those fancy power tools.
That's a fact. That's a fact. So, but I mean, there's just so many well-rounded anglers. It's unbelievable to look back and even like Basil Bacon. The first time I met Basil Bacon, he threw a spook and walked it around this tree, and I'm like, how did he get it to go the other direction? I mean, that's crazy, but he was so good with a spook. And of course Charlie Campbell. I mean, there's just a lot of them that really brought something to the table.
You mentioned obviously Denny Brower, so we're just putting the Brower family and the Hibden family up there. But you mentioned Denny. What do you know what part of the lake? He's in Amistad now. All he does is relax in his man cave and go out and occasionally fish when it's temperature's cool and ideal. He's living the life. Do you know what part of the lake he fished on Lake of the Ozarks? Was he a river guy who would fish the laydowns, or was he a dock guy?
No, I think he was a dock guy. Of course, I like the Ozarks. You can do both.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
The river and fish the wood and the docks at the same time. But I think he was one of those guys that really just sampled the lake everywhere and tried to find the best bite and rolled with it. Dion's a lot like that. He grew up in Gravis Mills, and so he's not afraid to be up the Gravois or be at the Buffaloes. Just kind of depends on where he thinks the best bite is. And I think Denny was the same way. And one thing that's helped the Hibden family and the Brower family up there is Chad and Denny Brower could fish the same lake, practice together on separate ends, and then the Hibdens could do the same and kind of consult at the end of the night and see where they thought the best bite was, and that definitely gave them a big advantage out there on the road.
It's good stuff. All right, current Ozark guys who are going right now, or maybe up and comers that we haven't heard of. This is the dangerous list. Listen, there you could name 50 guys that probably could go on there, but just what comes to mind. I'm giving you the out here. I did it with Milliken, and I had him name like the big glide bait guys, and of course everyone's like, "Well, what about Butch Brown? What about?" And it's like, yeah, you can throw all those guys on there. We've got a limited amount of time here.
Yeah, if you just look at stats and what they've done over time, golly, there's a bunch of them. But Roger Fitzpatrick's probably one of the hottest last couple of years anglers. He made maybe 3 All-Americans the last 5 years or 4. You think he's made 7 or 8. Dennis Burhorse has made 7 or 8. And Dennis, he's just one of those fishermen that he can win on every lake. Marcus Sakura, he's a well-rounded angler, won the All-American. A lot of these guys, it seems like you pay attention to are up around, Lake of the Ozarks. But one that's kind of stretched his feet, that if he was just right here locally right now, everybody'd get tired of hearing his name, would be Cody Huff. Cody is such a good angler. I've been fortunate to be in the boat with him a handful of times. He's really aggressive. He really gets excited about it. He's very mild-mannered and quiet, but he's very aggressive out there fishing, as far as after the fish. And so it's really cool. He would be one that people would be getting tired of hearing, and there's just so many of them. Every lake has their own group too. I think a guy like Dustin Blevins down on Table Rock, anytime he shows up, guys are like, dadgummit, Blevins showed up, or, Bull Shoals or wherever it might be, Grand Lake's got them too, the Little Johns, they're probably as consistent as anybody, the brothers down there. And, Toby Hartzell, he's really consistent there on Grand Lake. He used to fish the tour. So, I mean, I think you just got to go with whatever lake it is. They've got their own threat anytime you pull up there to the ramp.
Yeah, it is. Just in case Mark Jeffries happens to listen to this episode, I just have to say this word: Central Pro-Am. There, we said Central Pro-Am. We talked about the Ozarks. You can't talk about the Ozarks without saying Central Pro-Am. It's kind of like a rule.
That's right. You take.
Did you fish those?
No, I never did. I missed the Central Pro-Am era. I was just starting when a Heartland Team Series and Heartland Pro-Am Series
I've heard of that.
started. But you take a guy like Terry Thomas, Robbie Dotson, and Dave Barker, and throw them in the mix from the Central Pro-Am days, they've probably won like 45 boats together, all 3 of those guys. I think Robbie's won 17, 18, 19. I mean, it's crazy. The Davis brothers, I mean, you can't just go on and on, about
you got McClellan, Reynolds, all those guys.
Yeah, for sure. There's all of them.
Yeah, that's wild stuff. Do you think the Ozarks, its strength is also its weakness? It lacks diversity as far as grass and you know, a lot of them fish. It's rock. Do you think that there's a lot of Ozark anglers who struggle when they try to go national and have to go down to Florida and have to go down to a tidal system or a natural body of water? Is it strength also its greatest weakness when trying to develop a well-rounded angler from coast to coast?
Well, I mean, yes and no, because if you take, say, Truman Lake, which I just consider just a dirty, shallow fishery, you know, lots of timber. You take Lake of the Ozarks, which is a boat dock fanatic, clean water, you know, type fishery, and then Table Rock, where it's deep, clear with all three species, and then throw in like the Arkansas River. Man, if you can catch them in all four of those, you can about catch them everywhere. But you're right, we don't have the grasp, and I don't know if this was true for everybody, but when I took off nationally and even regionally, fishing some BFL regionals and a couple All-Americans and stuff like that, when we went to a lake that had grass, like say, for instance, Sam Rayburn, it seemed like the grass was so much easier to read than the Ozarks transitions and rock and all that, that all you had to do was find a good group of fish, and then you had the chance to compete out of the grass. And so to this day, it seems like to me, as I travel around, anywhere it's got grass makes it a little bit easier approach. But now I don't know if it was that way for everybody, but probably the hardest thing that I've seen out there on the road is when we go to a tidal fishery. Yeah. It's so weird to catch fish somewhere, come back the next day, and they're on dry ground.
Yeah, I don't get that. How does that work?
You know, and it's just weird. So, but the tide's definitely one that if a guy wants to, and then like when you go up north to smallmouth, it's a whole different fishery in its own. So it doesn't matter how good you are on grass or how good you are on rock and stuff like that. The smallmouth up there, like at St. Clair or Lake Erie and some of those, it's a whole different ball of wax. And it's just something that I've kind of had some success out, and I've kind of had my teeth kicked in, and I think it takes some time to learn. But I do think that's why the smallmouth fisheries up there, when guys do it up there and then come south and try to compete and don't have that great of success. You know, Matt Becker, he's one of the few that have really figured out how to do both. And then Ebers was smart enough to go up there and spend months and learn how to catch smallmouth.
Lucas did it too.
You know, yeah. So, I mean,
like lived up there, like took a fifth wheel up there and we're like, hey, I'm here for August.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really, I guess it's really probably just individually set, but I do feel like setting up in the Ozarks and living here my whole life has made me a better angler when I do get on the road for the most part without having too many hindrances.
Best portion of the country to learn pattern fishing? Yes or no?
Oh yeah, absolutely. 100%. If you go to Florida, you can throw that pattern fishing right out the window. So
yeah, the pattern fishing is the deal. I think it's harder to go. I do think there's also a lot of guys, like I remember when I first started fishing the opens and went down to the grass and was talking to these couple guys, and I was like, what the hell? There's like miles of it. I don't get it. It's overwhelming to me. And they're like, yeah, try going to freaking Table Rock where everything's just rock on the bank. They're like, where the hell do you fish down here? And I'm like, it's freaking easy, dude. Like, look at the size of the rock, look at the transitions, look at all this stuff. And they're like, no, it's a freaking rock bank. At least with the grass, you know when they're there. But yeah, I guess it's 6 one way, half dozen the other. Yeah. And then the good guys like you, like all the guys in the BPT and the Elite Series, are the ones who figure it out and put their twist on it across the country.
Well, you just got to find something that kind of works for you when you go to one of those places, because, you know, you got to really face the fact that you've got a day and a half or 2 days of practice, depending on what time of the year it is. And you've got an enormous lake. So you might not even get to practice where the winning fish are. And then you just have a good tournament, but you never had a chance to win. And it was due to your practice. So sometimes the fact that, you go to one of these areas and you're on a certain timed, timeline to practice before competing keeps you from learning too much too. So, you know, if you just can't, the expense is so great, you can't go everywhere and practice like Ebert did and stay for months at a time and learn how to do that. And so it's kind of the school of hard knocks.
You're the city administrator for Sarcoxie, Missouri. Was that a town of like what, 10,000?
Oh no, that's like less than 2,000 people, and that's probably counting a few dogs.
Oh, okay. Because I was reading an article where you were like in charge of some downtown revitalization. Yeah, big picture of you downtown with the stuff in the background, and I had no idea that you were is that considered being a politician?
No. I ran the show for the public works, and took care of the parks and the streets and the wastewater and the water tower and all that. But I was out in the field every day. It was a small group. I had some great guys working for me, and we did a lot, 99% everything in house. Whether it was fixing water mains to patching streets to doing whatever, making sure the water tower didn't fall over. And so, I did it 22 years. It was a great job. I had a great mayor at one time that I said, man, I want to try and stretch my legs and do this fishing deal, but I don't have enough time. If you'll give me the time off, which is, 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks, I won't take any pay. And so they agreed to do it. And so once my vacation was up, then I just took it without pay, and it kind of evolved. And then I won the All-American, got a chance to fish the FLW tour. And I said, I'm going to need like 10 weeks off now, 12 weeks. And it just, they were all good with it. And my coworkers were good with it. They would stack the paperwork eye level high on my desk as long as I came back in the end, they didn't care. And so it was a great job for a lot of years, but we've moved on since then and let everybody else take care of that. And we're trying to fish full time, and it's been a blessing on me and my family. So I've got no complaints.
Is this the first time in your career, the last couple, 3 years now, that you've relied solely on professional bass fishing without a secondary job?
Last year was the first full year that
how exciting is that?
Yeah, it's really exciting, and it's a really good way to go broke if anybody wants to try it. So I'm fortunate enough, my wife works as well, and we kind of make ends meet, and we've made a lot out of a little. And so if a guy can just get fortunate and keep his head above water with his fishing pole, then anybody has the opportunity to do it. But it's a little bit scary and a little bit exciting, all rolled up into one great big traveling rig.
Talk about the rest of the year on the BPT. Like I said, you're like a year and a half in and extremely consistent, regardless of what tour you're fishing, who you're fishing against, how you're fishing. Anything coming up that you're, outside of the invitational, which is kind of like a one-off deal. Not part of the BPT. Anything on the BPT that you're really looking forward to?
There's really not. Last year when we saw Lake the Ozarks was on the schedule, I'm like, great, I'm gonna get to fish at home on the BPT. So, I was really, really looking forward to that one. I'm not really looking forward to anything. We go to Guntersville next, and then St. Clair, and I fished my very first FLW tour event on Guntersville, and then I had a really good, made the top 10 up in Lake St. Clair, on the FLW tour one time. And so, there's some tournaments that you really look forward to, and you really don't. I don't really know if I have one I don't or do, but I'm just looking forward to the rest of the season. And don't get me wrong, I can screw up plenty. I definitely have done my fair share of messing up and coming in almost dead last, and I can do it with the best of them. So, but you just try to learn from it, fish hard, and hope that you just keep making the right moves to get that bite or two, because it always comes down to just a bite or two. It's not the fact that you didn't catch them. For a great example, the last event at Lake Murray, I caught almost 28 pounds in 2 days, 13 something a day, 14 a day. And that's normally pretty solid, but it finished me towards the back end because the guys just caught more than that. And everybody had a 5-6 pounder, and I just didn't get that bite to get a day that got my weight up a little bit. And so sometimes that's just how it works. But I'm just looking forward to the rest of the season and seeing what goes on moving forward. And it's just really exciting. But, got the All-American coming up at Hartwell. And that's where my whole career got started. And so to go back and stand on that stage again is going to be really exciting. Probably a lot of memories there. And we're just looking forward to fishing the rest of the season, representing a bunch of great sponsors all over the road, and hopefully doing it for several more years.
I get on my soapbox for a minute. I need FLW, what they did with the All-American and the history of that and the list of winners. We did a whole series 4 or 5 years ago with Mark of how many careers that the All-American has launched. You're an example of that too, with MLF taking it over. Dude, bring that All-American back to what it used to be. I'm not saying it's not the same, but like those All-Americans in the 90s and 2000, that was the freaking tournament. I've tried to qualify for one in 2013, and Jim Tutt missed an FLW tour event to fish a regional. He missed a tour event to fish a regional with the hopes of qualifying for the All-American. That's how big that All-American was. And it seems it's like lately, like it's kind of gotten lost in the mix of it. Like, blowout coverage for that All-American, live stuff, give the guys all the stuff they used to get. That All-American is a gem. And when you're ranking tournaments, man, there was one point where I'd rank that All-American. It'd be like Classic, Forest Wood Cup, All-American. Like, that was one of the top 3 biggest tournaments. And it's still big, but it's not as big as it used to be. I think there's an opportunity there, especially with as many grassroots, as many BFL guys as are out there fishing, spending all their time. Dude, that All-American is something special.
Well, there's no doubt that it is something special, and it has changed some, and it has definitely, altered from the 90s and the first time I made it in 05 and different things. But, the world's made a lot of changes too, and some of the opportunities that were there then just aren't even there then, or there now. And so some of it could be changed back. Some of it will never be changed back. It's still an awesome event. It's a life-changing event. I can attest to that. I've made 6 Forest Wood Cups and Red Crest combined and 6 All-Americans. And I can tell you it is way harder to make an All-American than a championship on a major tour, just because there's like 40,000 people that start the year off trying to make the All-American. And then you got 6 regionals, and then you got to make the top 6 in your regional against 200 guys. And 50 of those guys are hometown guys. So you got to beat all the locals, depending on where it's at. And it's just really, really hard to do. And you can't have a bad day, during that event. You fished all year to get there, and then you have a bad day during the regional and you're out instantly. So it's definitely way harder, but it's a tournament that sets front and center on my mantle from winning it. And then the FLW Tour Trophy is right beside it, but it'll never mean the same as that All-American trophy, just because of the fact that if it wasn't for the All-American trophy, I wouldn't have a tour trophy. So, but, something that we're really proud of too is me and my team partner, Chris Macy. We fished together, I don't know how many years now, but had some success here locally. But he's won the All-American, and I've won the All-American, and we're the only team partners to ever win it, like that. And so it's just always a big joke down at Grand Lake when we show up together. There's going to be a protest about All-American winners fishing together and different things. And so, but the All-American between the anglers at the grassroots level, they've got their eye on it. It's a dream for everybody. It was a dream for mine, and it was the only way that I knew I'd ever get a chance to fish professionally and have the funds to do it financially. And it just really worked out, and I think it was all meant to be. And so, it'll be something I'll never forget.
All right. I'm going to let you go, but before I do, you got to tell us about the Squirrel Master Classic, because that was one of the craziest things I'd ever heard. Like, you're talking about like Cullum rights and, like bragging rights, a lot of stuff on the line here. Hit us with the details of the underground squirrel hunting leagues.
We used to just do that as fun on a Saturday somewhere, and it would just be. So a few years ago, we decided we'd open this thing up, make it public. And a good friend of ours, Nate Everts, he took it and just kind of became the ringleader of it. And we put out flyers and started having more or less some sponsorship of it, as far as, we have a big meal when we all come in, and there's some prizes and different things, but, cash is awarded. And the last few years, it's kind of altered over into the fact that everybody's having a good time. We're going to weigh these squirrels, and everybody's going to win. And then somebody benefits from it. We donated all the money to a young kid here locally last year that had cancer. And so raised, I don't know, several $100s for him, for travel and this and that. And the guys that won it donated the money back. And it was just a great event. But what we do is we go out and you can weigh your best 6 reds and your best 6 grays. A little tip here, you want to get your grays early. They don't stick around all day, but the reds definitely do. But you can win the reds or the grays or the combination of both. What your best 12 weigh, and then there's a big squirrel at the end, and it normally takes one that weighs somewhere around 220, 230 to win that. It's a pretty legit deal. A lot of guys have a lot of good time, with it, and it's just a great fun way to get out in the outdoors. Take some kids, do whatever, just trying to introduce them to hunting. And then, like you said, have some bragging rights and some laughs in the end and make a fun day out of it. But it's something that's easy for everybody to compete in, and there's an abundance of them. And so it's quite a little tournament, but it's growing every year. But I'll tell you what, it gets pretty serious though. I take a Boat Lodge's cold beam with me, and I set them on there. We're beaming them back and forth, see which one weighs more. Put them on your column right scales or your Rapala digital scales, and I mean it's quite a deal. It always comes down to just a few hundredths or a few ounces in order to see who wins or who loses. And so you don't want to miss out. Just like in a bass tournament, you don't want to miss it by just a few ounces or an ounce or a few hundredths. But it's a great event, and everybody has a great time.
Good stuff. Do you pre-hunt? Like, can you go out and like make squirrel calls and be like, oh, there's a big gray, I'm going to come back and get that one?
Well, you can. I mean, you can do whatever you need to do. Most of the time, some of the veteran stuff is, the squirrels that always get the biggest are always around like walnut groves or cornfields. Them old fence rows where, they could just get out there and eat on that corn all summer.
They don't have to burn a lot of calories. They're packing on the pounds.
You don't want to go somewhere where they've got to run 50 yards tree to tree. They're get too skinny on you. So you want to hunt areas where the squirrels are going to be bulky. And the really big deal is you hate to hunt the same area every year, because new generations of squirrels are coming up, but they're probably not going to weigh what somebody's going to find on some new property that hasn't been hunted. So there's a lot of angles to it, and it's just a great time.
That's good stuff. All right, I'm going to let you go. Jeremy, I know you have a weather decision on whether you're going to hit the lake or not. You do some stuff on YouTube. You have social media. If people want to follow you, where can they follow the remainder of your season?
Yeah, Jeremy Lawyer Fishing on all social media. And, I try to put some informational stuff out there, some funny stuff, some hunting and some fishing and some family, and just try to mix it all, and see how our kind of life just kind of rolls, but kind of let everybody know what's going on out on the road and just keep up with everybody. But yeah, follow along. I'd appreciate it.
All right. Dude, I have some regulars on BTL. I got Matt Steffen that jumps on a lot. He's up north. I got Charlie Hartley. He's the motivational speaker. I might need an Ozark regular that you seem to have a pretty strong fan base that really enjoyed the show. So if you're willing to jump on 2-3 times a year, I would love to have you back. I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd do it however many times you want to do it. I enjoy doing this kind of stuff and working shows and meeting fans of the sport and people that just want to talk fishing all over the country. So I enjoy doing this side of it as much as the fishing. So yeah, anytime we'll set it up.
All right, you're the man. Thank you very much. Thanks for carrying the show while I was frozen for a couple seconds. You did a great job, Jeremy. Have a good day.
Appreciate it. Yes, have a good day.
See ya. All right, that was BPT professional Jeremy Lawyer, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, and talked about it with Jeremy a little bit. Second place finisher of the MLF Toyota Series on Kentucky Lake. Also my partner for the Dick Hiley St. Jude Bass Classic, which we I think after the t-shirt sales and the donations, I think we're going to hit the $10,000 mark, which was our goal. Either that or we're going to be a few dollars shy, but right around 10,000, which we did like 5,000 almost last year. So we almost doubled it. So if you guys donated for that over the last month, thank you very much. Bart is back from his $17,000 effort on Kentucky Lake. And he has the raffle tickets, so we'll draw a blackfish rain gear or an AFCO rain gear, one of each, for those who donated over the last month. But first, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, Adam Bartuzek, St. Jude fundraiser, Dick Hiley St. Jude Bass Classic draw, and then I've talked about it enough on the show. He was like, dude, we're going to get to talk about this tournament? And I was like, hell yeah, dude, I'm not going to have you on and not talk about 360ing smallmouth off beds at will. It's BTL on a Wednesday. We'll be back right after this.
The great thing about the new Sensation soft plastics from Big Bite Baits, heavily scented, super soft, buoyant, comes in 7 great new shapes. I've got a couple of them of my signature series, the cliffhanger worm and the ramtail craw, great for a flipping jig, football jig, swim jig, all that. Several other great shapes. Really excited about it. We've worked over the last year, catches fish all over the country, and I think it's going to catch fish for people everywhere you try it.
The Spro Little John crankbait has been around for almost 15 years, and it is one of my go-to crankbaits whenever I need a fish in the boat, so you can never have enough new colors. That's why Spro's coming out with a handful of new colors, including Pearl Shad, which has this bleached out white look, but it's got this pearlescent, really, really pretty. We've got Copper Shad, which looks amazing in the water. It's got that purple flake on the back, really pops in the water. And then if you want some real pop, we've got sparkle shad, nothing but sparkles all over this thing. And then last but not least, we've got the matte sexy shad, just a really different looking color for a crankbait. So you want to give them a little different look, that matte sexy shad is definitely the one to go with. All these colors are available in the original Little John and the MD.
Are you looking to install your own fishing electronics? The solution is the Bass Tank Power Harness. It takes the guesswork out of installation. No more voltage issues or interference. Designed by an engineer so that you can get professional results right there in your own garage. Installation done right with the help of the Bass Tank Power Harness. You can feel confident knowing that your installation was done right. The Bass Tank Power Harness. Give us a call or order yours today at thebasstank.com.
Having confidence in your tackle while on the water is one of the main things to success, in my opinion. In the last couple of years with Denali, I've had just that. From anything from spinning rods, casting rods, tungsten products, even now to casting and spinning reels, I have the confidence to go out there and get the job done and know that all my equipment is going to handle it and do it just the way I want it. The thing about Denali is you've got great quality products at a great price point, so make sure you check them out. I'm the kind of guy that never leaves the house without a pocket knife, and Gamakatsu's come out with the EDC series of knives. EDC stands for everyday carry, so whether you're on the water or off, you can always have it with you. The best thing about it to me is that assisted open feature. With this D2 blade, you've got it right here at your fingertips, so if you can't find your scissors, you need to cut a knot, you need to cut your braid, you've always got it. Make sure you check it out. Never leave home without your Gamakatsu EDC knife.
Born in Japan, using technology, innovation, and precision, Sunline produces the widest selection of fishing lines at the most technologically advanced line factory in the world. Manufactured at the strictest tolerances to produce victories at the highest levels of tournament bass fishing. From household names like Christie, Swindle, and Cruz, to young guns like Cook, Logan, New, and Welcher, they all trust Sunline to take them to the top of the leaderboard. Choose the line that will give you the strength to guarantee your confidence. Sunline.
All right, welcome back, BTL, on a Wednesday. Now it is time to go to Adam Bartuzak. I think he's back in Minnesota.
Yeah,
I just woke up. Did you just wake up, Adam? You still had a hangover from the second place finish in the Toyota Series?
Dude, it's a long drive back home from Chattanooga. So yeah,
I hear you.
I am. It was a long week.
I'll tell you the same thing. If my internet recycles, just you're still on live, so don't do anything crazy. Just carry the show for me. Appreciate
it. I'll take it over. We can dive into should we do a little bit of raffle drawing? I got them all literally in here.
Those are all the raffles. So the way we did it was on the direct link that we had up for a couple month actually. Every $20 that was donated, if you put your name and email down on the list that was donated directly to St. Jude, you've got connections with Blackfish. I've got connections with AFCO. We're going to draw 2 for every $20 that was donated. You got 1 raffle ticket. You went through that list of people who donated over the past month. And then I'm assuming put their name on each raffle ticket. It's like if they donated $100, they got 5 raffle tickets in there. Can the same person win both? Technically, they could.
Technically they could, but I think we should make sure someone different wins them. That was going to be what I was
okay. So before we pick, if you win the Blackfish, which is what the Blackfish rain suit, which you're going to draw first, then you can just go celebrate that. You can't win the AFCO one.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You want me to draw them right now? They're all in here. I spent last night 20 minutes doing it, so.
Yeah, we'll draw them right now. Well, we got a stable connection. So we'll start with the Blackfish, and then if you do win, obviously you're going to say your name. You need to send me an email, Matt, M-A-T-T, at basszone.com. And then I'll either get you in touch with Bart to order your Blackfish or me to order the AFCO. So Bart has drawn the ticket for the Blackfish suit. Who we got?
We got Kevin Lake.
Kevin Lake.
Yes.
L-A-K-E?
Huh?
L-A-K-E, like
yes.
I'm going fishing at the lake.
Yeah.
Kevin Lake. So if you're listening to this, shoot me an email, matt@basszone.com with your contact info. I will then pass it along to Adam Bartuzek, and you have just won a Blackfish rain suit. All right, let's move on to the AFCO. There's a bunch in there.
There is. There's probably like 50 to 60 of them. I'm trying to make sure I
just pick one so we don't end up with a Steve Harvey Miss Universe
Oh
moment.
boy. Okay.
Well, we got a tough last name.
Yeah, we got a tough name, and I didn't write it well. So give me 2 seconds while I go to the website, and I'm gonna find it because I remember writing this one down, and I was like, I know I'm gonna end up picking this one.
There's all sorts of like, what are this, like European, Scandinavian, maybe French
and I just
people that are like, oh, it could be me.
I want to crush their name. So
if your name's Jim Smith or something, you probably didn't win.
No, it was definitely not. Yeah, it's not an easy one.
It's not Jay Shakurat, is it?
No, it's not Jay Shakurat. Okay, I got it. It is Daniel Bearwald.
Oh, that's a cool last name.
Yeah, Bearwald.
Daniel Bearwald. All right, so you won the AFCO rain suit. Shoot me an email with it in the title. AFCO St. Jude Raffle winner. Matt, MATT @basszone.com. That's good stuff. I mean, we had a lot of BTL listeners that really stepped up this year. And like I said, whether it was $20, whether it was $100, whether you attended the St. Jude fundraiser up at Giesenbrauser Beer Company.
Giesenbräu, we're working on it.
Giesenbräu Beer Company earlier this month. Big shout out to the sponsors of both the Crappie Chronicles and Bart and BTL and myself for coming through. We did almost $4,000 there. And then the straight donations and the t-shirt money was about right around the $3,000 mark. I'm still, as soon as that check comes in, I'll have an actual number, and then that'll go out and do 10 grand. That was our goal, and we are right there.
Yeah, I think we maybe need like a couple hundred left. So if people still want to donate, they totally can.
I'll put the link in the description for this show. The t-shirt sales are already shut down.
Yes, exactly. So
and a bunch of people are getting their t-shirts. I think we did over 250, 200 t-shirts, something around there.
Yeah, for sure. So if people still want to donate, they can. I don't know if you've talked about it or not, but the event has officially been postponed.
It has been officially postponed.
So it's been officially postponed.
Okay.
If people don't know, the upper Mississippi River is like in a once in a 50-year flood right now.
The bar is underwater. What movie was filmed that we had a beer at last year? Grumpy Old Men?
Yeah, Grumpy Old Men. The bar from Grumpy Old Men, Slippery's bar. Like the one Matt and I sat at that bar, had a few beers before the event. That bar is underwater from being at, like, that's how high the water is down there. So the event has now been rescheduled to the fall. It'll be the first weekend of October 7th and 8th. If you're maybe thinking about fishing an event, it's going to be the end of the year. There's probably no place in the country as beautiful as the Mississippi River Valley at the beginning of October with the fall color change. And I will also be able to tell you that it is probably the most ludicrous fishing you're going to ever experience. The bite is going to be really, really, really good. It's going to be a good time to learn current fishing, smallmouth and largemouth. They're going to be putting the feed bag on. I'm going to say, like, people think of the fall down south, I know is like fairly tough, but Minnesota, Wisconsin in the fall, it is like, I mean, turn the dial up. They're chewing before ice gets put on top. So the bite's going to be insane. So if anybody's thinking about fishing it, it's going to be really fun. And I don't know. I heard this talk while I listened to BTL while I'm practicing down on Kentucky. And I heard this talk suddenly of Frank maybe getting pressured into the opens. I think we should just pressure him into fishing the Jude. Get him at Frank.
Yeah, get him and Frankie Jr. in October now to fish the Jude. But hey, just to put a bow on that, big shout out. We'll have more information on the fall. It looks like I'm going to have to go fly directly from Florida to fish that now and then back instead of from Virginia next week. But it is what it is. Wanted to move on and congratulate you on your second place and say, A, it's about damn time. And B, it has to feel good to go into contention in any major tournament, not only with the money, but with the title, knowing people are looking at it and finding something that is just off the beaten path. that, I mean, you found the winning pattern in that event. I've talked about it a couple times. Looked like a real cool way to catch a 20-pound bag of brown fish.
Yeah. I mean, no, it was super cool. I'm very thankful. Like, you don't really, I mean, you always think it can happen, I guess. Like, you're always thinking, like, yeah, I can do this. I can actually do this. And then when it's happening, you're like, yeah, I'm supposed to be here. And like, it felt fairly, I don't know. It just felt like home out there. It was really cool. The pattern was very much like in the north. And when I found it, I mean, I saw some people kind of bopping around doing some similar stuff in practice, but I don't really think they knew to the extent of what was actually going on there. And when I figured it out and I knew what was going on, like it was cool because I knew I was going to have the whole lake to myself, and I literally did. There was a 200 boat tournament going on, and I could run wherever I wanted, whenever I wanted. I could manage all my fish. I literally had nobody.
Did I get that right when I've been explaining it, that you were finding you're finding beds on your 360 and then going and targeting the fish that were literally on the beds that you were seeing on your electronics? So you were basically sight fishing with your electronics on what just looked like random open water to everyone else.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's, I'll dive into as much of it that has been actually published. Because there's a lot more to it, but that I think people got a little bit of an introductory lesson into some of the stuff we do up north. But yeah, so Humminbird 360, forward facing sonar, obviously people talk about a lot now. And one tool that I have never understood why people don't have down south, especially like Oklahoma. I know every guy I stayed with from Oklahoma this week is now buying one when they get home. But I don't understand why people don't have Humminbird Mega 360 because, live is good. You can see what's there. You can see suspended fish. But like when fish are on the bottom or when you're target casting at structure, you don't know if it's a stick, a rock, a house foundation, a channel swing, whatever it is. With 360, you literally have just spinning side imaging. So basically, I was able to look at it. I'd see a stump, and like instead of me just having to point live at it and be like, "Oh, I'll chuck at that stump," I could just look at 360 and be like, "Yeah, there's a bed there. There's not a bed there," and just move on. I still will say by halfway through day 2, I just started pitching at every single stump I saw because there were so many fish piling into these spawning areas that there was a fish on every single stump, whether there was a bed there or not. You just stomp, rock, whatever it was, just anything that was out there. There was a fish going to it. And I mean, that was the coolest thing. So like, yeah, like I said, I'd look at my 360 and then the only thing I would use Mega Live for, I could see the fish sometimes. I could see like, it looked like a rock right in front of the stump and you're like, oh, he's there. But for the most part, I could never see the fish. I would just use my live to line up my cast to that object. You know, I'd see on 360, like, okay, that stump or rock is 50 feet away, turn my live towards it, chuck it over there. And I think a lot of guys were fishing fairly slowly and finesse. You don't really need to with smallmouth. So I just kind of moved around quickly, and we're used to that type of fishing up here and those type of events. So I just started moving fast and chucking at them. But yeah, it was really cool. It was a lot of fun. And
Jake Lawrence, who won it was his 3rd Toyota Series win of his career, I believe. He was pretty much doing the same thing with live scope, right?
Yeah, he was. He actually, so I don't quote me on this, but he was using a buddy's boat for the event. And I know his buddy's boat had 360 on it because I saw Jake running around too. And we were the only people in the field that had it. So
I remember fishing that St. Jude last year. Everyone's lined up there, and it just cracked me up because it was 50 boats in a line and 50 boats had the 360 on it. And I'm like, that's just not a thing down here. I mean, it is. You see guys with everything, but not as nearly as much as it is up north.
Yeah, I mean like I said, I don't get it because 360 gets really annoying if you get in a heavy grass bed or something. And like we have a ton of grass in Minnesota.
But you guys fish a bunch of weird stuff. Like you got natural lakes that don't have defined, like it's not like cast there, it's like, hey, look at this open expanse. Doesn't it look amazing? And you're like, no, it doesn't. But you guys seem to love it.
Yeah, exactly. But like I even say in Oklahoma, like if you're a brush pile fisherman, why wouldn't you have 360? Like I can just look at a brush pile and I can see 3 fish chilling on the right side of the brush pile on the bottom, and I just chuck to those 3 fish. Yeah, you can probably see it with live, but I just think I think people, I mean, forward facing sonar, don't get me wrong, Mega Live, Live Scope, Active Target, whatever you use, it's an incredible tool and it helps catch fish. But when you're looking at 360 and you're able to see bottom transitions and just objects and exactly what is actually down there, like I just think it's like the best thing in the world. And that, like I said it in my post. If anyone wants to see kind of what I was looking at, I did make a post.
Yeah, it is. It's cool. You can actually see it. You can be like, hey, here's a bed. Here's a smallmouth on the bed. What's your Instagram handle?
At Adam Bartusek, ADAMBARTUSEK. But yeah, if anyone wants to look at it, they can see it there. And you'll see why, like I said, like I would not, I mean, I think I still probably would have been up there without it, but I would not have been able to be nearly as efficient and give a local like Jake, who knows that lake like the back of his hand, an actual run for his money without it. Because I was just able to carve through water so quickly by looking at it.
I don't know if that shows up.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly it. Yeah, that shows it. That one you can actually see the fish chilling in it too.
That's freaking wild.
Yeah.
And then you would just take it and waypoint.
Yeah, I would just put a waypoint down
just
there.
Go over there.
If it was blue, it meant I either caught it or I shook it off. So I knew there was for sure a fish there. And then, I mean, I probably had 180 to 200 waypoints to run through over 3 days.
Good Lord.
I only fished 7 waypoints on day one. I fished 7 of them.
Wow.
I got up to 17.5 pounds. I was like, I guess I'll go largemouth fishing for a bit.
Well, anytime you get hardware and a check that has 5 numbers in it, you did something right. So congratulations.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Yeah, anybody who's reached out, it's been cool. It was just crazy. And by the way, for anybody, Kentucky Lake, I know everyone's wondering how it's doing, how the fishing is and everything. I can't speak to the largemouth fishing because I didn't do it very much, and it was very difficult since the water was about a foot low. They weren't in the bushes, but that lake, I have never seen a lake with so many smallmouth in it.
I think you were just around a concentration.
I was around a concentration, but dude, I'm telling you, I could run anywhere on that lake. And if you chucked a bottom bait around for a little bit, you catch a 12 to 14 incher. Like there is smallmouth all over that place right now. It's really good. Like it's definitely doing better. It's turned more into a smallmouth lake, I think. You still see some giant largemouth bags coming in. And if someone was able to do that, I wouldn't have been able to compete, but it definitely, like, there's definitely fish in it. It's coming back. There's a lot less carp. And yeah, it was cool. It was very cool.
Good stuff. Is the Chronicles season completely done, Bart? I mean, I would say your main gig is you're the host of the Crappie Chronicles. This was it season 3 already?
Yeah, it was season 3. Yep. We finished up in about the end of February. I think the last episode posted. Yep.
Okay. So if you guys want to go look at some really cool, they went to Maine. You went to, where'd you go? Michigan?
Maine, the UP, and then Minnesota. Yep.
Yeah. It's a good time. If you're just tired of watching bass fishing, go watch the Crappie Chronicles.
And if you like cooking crappies and you want new ways to do it, Ryan came out with a cookbook.
Oh, what was that? Because that is cool. There's even like a recipe in there that I may have had a small influence.
You did have an influence on. You made
what is the name of it again?
So the frozen. It's called the Frozen Kitchen. It's on Amazon. You can make these recipes for any crappies you catch. It's just there's no ice fishing cookbook, so we made it. It's been up there on Amazon with Meat Eater and everything else for best sellers. So if anyone wants to buy one, highly recommend it. It's like $30. It's
Pink's
awesome gift.
Good dude too.
Yeah.
There it is right there. The Frozen Kitchen.
Yep. That is it. And it's sold really well. There's going to be a bunch more this year. Pink's ended up, you would like this. Pink ended up getting a Traeger deal. So he's going to be whipping up some recipes now for the Traeger on how how to cook them. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, anybody who catches a ton of crappies and wants a different way to cook them other than having a fish fry, this is definitely the way to do it. Oh, yeah. So with the Chronicles, yeah, we spent all winter just traveling around fishing for crappies. And yeah, Ryan cooks them all. Whether you like chilaquiles, fish burgers, there's like 5 fish taco recipes in there. And then Panger's Influence, which was the crappie casserole. So it's a Buffalo Ranch crappie casserole, I think is what Ryan.
It's good stuff. Actually, you know who taught me that? Jared Miller, former Elite Series pro.
Yeah, I think you told me that when it came up, and it's good. Like it's
we were up
super
at 10
simple,
Killer
too.
one time, and we caught these crappie, and we go back to his cabin, and he's like, "Watch this!" And he takes raw crappie fillets and squirts ranch all over them, and puts cheese, and then puts them in the oven. And I'm like, "This is repulsive." And then it comes out, and it's the most delicious thing I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
All right, Bart. Thank you for jumping on. Like I said, if you were one of the 2 winners, Mr. Lake or Mr. Bear Hunt?
Yeah, it's Kevin Lake and Daniel Barron.
Barron.
Bearwald.
Yeah,
Beerwald. Shoot
me a message. All right, dude. Appreciate it. Go back to sleep.
All right. See you, buddy.
All right. See you. All right. That was Adam Bartuzek. All right. We're doing something a little bit special. The Open doesn't start, or the Open starts practice on Friday this week. So Thursday with Uncle Frank. I think Frank's going fishing tomorrow. So we're going to power through, and we will be back at 11:30 a.m. Central Time, like an hour and a half from now, for day 4 on day 3. We're going to take viewer comments and questions since it's at a different time. Talk a little bit about spawning stuff, and then next week's episode of Uncle Frank will be a recorded show. No, because I should be back by then. Anyway, we'll talk spawning stuff and then record a show for next week because he's going to be out of town. I don't know what's happening. All I know is at 11:30, I'll be back with a live show with Uncle Frank today. So if you want more BTL, more day 4 at a special time, I'm also going to talk to Uncle Frank about what I just got from Buc-ee's. That's just the wrapper from it last night. It takes about 2 hours to do. Chicken stuffed with shrimp and sausage jambalaya. Dude, this stuff is unbelievable. You go to Buc-ee's, you open up the freezer door, boom, there it is. It's a stuffed chicken. They zip it up. It looks like a hockey jersey that they have stitched up with all sorts of the jambalaya in it. Big shout out to Jeremy Lawyer, Sarcoxy, Missouri's pride and joy. Having a great year, great last half decade on the water. Really enjoyed talking about the Ozark stuff. So we'll be back at 11:30 in a couple hours with day 4 on day 3, assuming that storm doesn't hit. I am more and more like Jeffries every day. More and more like Jeffries. Internet, weather. It's not a bad thing, though. We built a pretty good thing here with BTL. So, all right, that's all we got for today. We'll see everybody later on today. Unless you're watching it tomorrow, then we'll see you tomorrow. You're watching the replay. This has been BTL. See ya.